So then Clipper had within a week to find a mate who had a B1, B2 visa, Chinese visa, and a yachtmaster. And well, Nikki and Sophie knew each other from racing before. And then Nikki contacted Sophie, who was in the French Alps with her sister skiing. And I was like, oh, would you fancy racing across the North Pacific in late winter? And she was like, sure, when? Friday.
On the Wind is presented this season by two old friends of the podcast, Rutgerson Marine, a hardware company in Sweden, close to home for me, and OPO, Offshore Passage Opportunities, run by our good friend Hank Schmidt, fan of the podcast, friend of the podcast, former guest of the podcast, which is a place where you can join Hank's mailing list and basically sail for free as a crew member on various deliveries that Hank organizes. It's a great way. I kind of started my career doing deliveries, and obviously we'd love for you to come sail with us at 59 North, but if you don't have the time or can't afford it, you can pay, I think it's up to $150 a year now to join OPO, and you get lots of opportunities to go on deliveries as a crew member. So check that out. That's sailopo.com. As for Rutgerson, I am in the process of ordering a new rig for Spica, a new rig and sails. And part of that project is going to include installing a bunch of Rutgerson stuff on the mast and sails. So we use the Rutgerson bat car receptacles for the sails. We use Rutgerson clutches for the mast and a bunch of other hardware items. A good friend of ours, Ludwig, is the designer at Rutgerson. So it's really cool to basically have access to that. And unlike most other hardware companies, everything at Rutgerson is designed and built in Sweden. Ludwig's office is upstairs at the factory, and the factory is downstairs. So when there's like a design question, Ludwig walks downstairs to the production floor and they can sort stuff out. It's really cool. We've had a lot of fun using Rutgerson stuff over the years. They make really high quality stuff. And I highly recommend it. So check out Rutgerson Marine. That's Marin. There's no E on that. RutgersonMarine.se to see all that stuff. And I'm sure next time you go to your local chandlery, look around and see what the Rutgerson stuff that you can find there, because it's quite ubiquitous, really high quality. And a very cool story. Those of us in the U.S. know more about Harken. Harken's kind of a ubiquitous sailing brand. Well, Peter Harken and Göran Rutgerson were buddies back in the 70s and kind of started these hardware companies on a similar sort of timeline. And there's a really cool little story there. There's an ice boat hanging up in the factory in Sweden that has the Harken and Rutgerson logos on it because they were doing that kind of stuff together back in the day. So really cool story. I love working with these small family companies, as you know, and I hope you'll buy their products to support them because they support the podcast. Again, that's sailopo.com. Check out Hank Schmidt's Offshore Passage Opportunities, and that's rutgersonmarine.se. Thanks again to both of them for sponsoring this episode of the show. Ahoy, shipmates. Welcome back to the show. I am again recording this on my phone in the field, but I'm not in Mexico anymore. I am sitting on the flybridge of my dad's Grand Banks 42 Kodiak. We are on a mooring in Little Harbor in the Abacos, waiting out some ridiculously gnarly weather to head south offshore and down towards the Exumas. We had a wicked cold front go through on Saturday. It's now Tuesday as I record this. And it blew 40 plus knots sustained overnight. Didn't get much sleep at the dock that night. Blew really hard the next day, so we stayed at the dock up in Marsh Harbor. Yesterday was still blowing close to 30, but we made it down to Pete's Pub down here in Little Harbor. And we were going to go offshore today. The wind's down, but the swell is still kicking offshore, so we're going to... It's weird weather routing on a motorboat. I'm not used to that. Like today would be the perfect day to get from here down to Spanish Wells in Eleuthera. It's like 65 miles. If we were in a sailboat, it'd be perfect because it's blowing maybe 15 knots from the north, but there's still like a 5 to 7 foot sea running offshore, which is no big deal in a sailboat. But put yourself in a trawler motorboat, and all of a sudden those waves sound pretty uncomfortable. As our friend Forbes, who sold us the boat, said, she'll roll you to death. And yes, we have a little steadying sail on the mast here, but I don't think it's going to do much in 5 to 7 foot seas. So we're not in a hurry. We're going to sit tight again today and probably head down there tomorrow on our way to the Exumas. Anyway, it's so fun. I mean, I just pinch myself, this lifestyle I get to lead. I mean, I came from Falcon. I just did a trip to Mexico, went from San Diego to Mexico, and now here I am. Delaney, one of the woodwind captains, is on Falcon with Mary. She filled in for me so I could come here and be with my dad. And I'm on my way back to Sweden then in 2 weeks. What do we have to do at 59 North? Some people have been waiting for this. I'm finally decided I'm doing a celestial workshop, kind of impromptu because I'm mainly doing it for two of my friends, one of whom is Delaney, actually, a skipper on Woodwind. And I thought, well, if they want to learn, they're working on getting their Yachtmaster Oceans licenses. If they want to learn, I'll open it up to whoever else wants to come. So we're doing it in Annapolis it's going to be a Friday and Saturday in April 17th and 18th. So April 17th and 18th. It's actually going to start on the 16th in the evening, if optional. So like April 16th in the evening, which will be Thursday, we'll meet up for drinks in town, get to know everybody. We'll be all day class on Friday the 17th, all day class on Saturday the 18th, and then after class is over around 4 p.m. on Saturday. If you got to skip out and head out of town, that's fine. Otherwise, we're going to have a barbecue at somewhere in Annapolis, hopefully at Ryan's house, but I'm not sure yet. I haven't actually asked him. So Ryan, if you're listening to this, can we have a barbecue at your house? So that's going to be the celestial thing. I'm going to limit it to just a few people because it's more fun in a small group. So if you want to sign up, that'll be on the homepage of the website. Just go to 59-north.com, scroll down to the bottom, and the events are there at the bottom, and you can register. You can register there and pay for the event online right there. Otherwise, I'm not sure what we have open on the boats. Not so much in 2026. I know we have maybe some in the fall still on Falcon, but 2027 is open. You can see all that. See what the open bunks are at 59-north.com/bunks. Okay, this episode today, Chris and Sophie, good friends of mine. Chris was a skipper for us for 2 years. They've led a really interesting lifestyle as professional sailors and now parents. We have a lot in common. They're raising a son, Xander, who's about the same age as Axel, also trying to live the professional sailor life. And they've got very exciting news. They're actually, Chris, as I speak now, is in Antarctica on Vinson with working for Skip Novak, but it's his last stint down there. And now they're building I think it's a Wharram 62, a Pacific Islander looking catamaran that they're going to have fully coated for charter and stuff, and they're taking it to the South Pacific. They have a former client that had worked with Chris is actually building the boat and is going to work with them. And anyway, Chris tells the whole story in the podcast, but that's very exciting for them. I'm excited that they're trying to combine family life and professional sailing, which I've been trying to do, and it's not easy. So I'm excited for them, and they tell the full story here. Okay, I think that's it. I'm going to sign off and enjoy the view from the flybridge, the nice pretty colored water in the Bahamas. I'll post some pictures on our Instagram. And until next week, hold fast.
You're listening to On the Wind, my podcast about offshore sailing. I'm your host, Andy Schell.
Chris Kobusch and Sophie O'Neill are longtime friends of 59 North. Chris was in fact one of our full-time skippers for 2 years on ICEBEAR and Falcon, and Mia and I recently attended their wedding in England last September. Both professional sailors, they met on the Clipper race, where Sophie was a last-minute sub-in as first mate and sailed across the Pacific with Chris. Since then, they've led an adventurous life together, working for Skip Novak in Antarctica and buying and refitting their own steel boat, Ocean Wanderer. Like Mia and I, they're now balancing family life with their son Xander and professional sailing, and recently announced a new project where they'll be building a Wharram 62 catamaran and sailing to the South Pacific. I spoke to them about all of this from their home base on the Isle of Wight just before Christmas.
We're on the Isle of Wight in East Cowes, so our base, at the moment.
So you have a home base and a home base boat, I guess, kind of like us.
Yeah, so exactly. It's kind of similar setup, although you live, well, I think you've sold, but I don't know, but on the farm, but we, good. But we live here and our boat's nearby. It's only 10 minutes away, so we're able to.
Oh, that's cool. Where are you guys from? Because Chris and Sophie, Chris, you're in England, but you're not English.
No, I'm from Germany. I left Germany when I was 21 in 2005. And then, I lived all over the world, but for the last 4 years, we've been living on the Isle of Wight.
Yeah. And Sophie, you're from, are you from where we were at the wedding?
Exactly that
little
town.
Yeah.
Winchelsea. Yeah, I grew up in London. Well, actually lived in Russia until I was 12, and then came back, and then we moved there to Winchelsea.
So that's right. So tell me about the Russia thing. I mean, that's like something you lived there till you're 12. That sounds like a big deal.
I guess all my childhood memories are from Moscow, where we lived there. Yeah, but it was to do with I don't have family over there. And I'm not Russian, but my father was a war journalist, so he was positioned out there for a while.
Wow.
So we went over and actually went to an American school, and yeah.
What was that like?
For me, it was very normal, but I realised having then come back to England how different it was. I guess we feel very fortunate. We went out before the fall of communism, and then we were out there until 96. Yeah, so we saw the big changes going on.
Do you have like any specific memories of that you could share? Like that's fascinating to me. I know you said it's like I guess it would have been normal to you as a kid. You didn't know any different.
Yeah, I have quite vivid memories, and I can remember so much from my childhood. And some of my friends from Moscow came to the wedding as well that you came to. But I think from the early years before the fall of communism, when we first went out there, you had to queue for everything. You had to queue to get a ticket to then join a queue, and the queues could go on for a mile or more. They were so long, and we went out in the depth of winter when we first arrived, and everyone's wearing big fur coats. Everything's brown and grey, but it was full of life, and people were out helping each other, and it's very much a community vibe. And I just I had that vision or memory of my mum queuing with us for such a long time to get a loaf of bread, to get a ticket to then queue to buy a loaf of bread.
So you guys didn't have any like privileges living. You were living amongst the people in Moscow, not necessarily on like what was that like?
I think that's a really good question, because we were living on a compound which was filled with a lot of diplomats, but we weren't on the American base, although my father worked for an American TV news station. But no, we were on this compound, but because it's before the fall of communism, there weren't the big supermarkets in, but we were out when the first supermarket came in, which was called Sadco. And I think it's Swedish or Scandinavian. And that first came in, I think, in maybe 92 or 93, around about that time, the early 90s. And I remember then my mum taking us to that supermarket. So that was, all those big, I remember the first Pizza Hut coming in and the first McDonald's and, Moscow. And my parents were the first ones to have a Land Rover car. They were all Skodas and Ladas. And it was just those really early, exciting days.
What was the
change?
Was there, do you remember having culture shock when you came back to England?
We used to come back during the holidays, but the big difference for me was, I think, then going to schools here. I went to an American school, and I found that I really enjoyed it. It was very open. It was very encouraging. I loved, even the American style lockers you have, and just teachers, the walls were covered in drawings by the children. It was very fulfilling and very encouraging. Whereas I then went to a very regimented, it was a boarding school, but I went as a day pupil to start with, and it was very regimented. You had to wear uniform, and everything was, it had to be pretty precise. And that for me was a really big shock. And I then struggled at school. I think partly as a result, I felt a lot of pressure, whereas I struggled with maths. And in Moscow, the American teachers were really encouraging. They really helped you. And then, so I think that was the big shock for me.
That's like bizarre that you had culture shock from an American school back to England, not necessarily from the Russian way of life or whatever. That's pretty weird.
Yeah, that's an interesting question, but I think that's because we were coming back every few months or certainly every summer holidays.
Yeah. That's, because I obviously grew up in American school system. I can't imagine having to wear a uniform and doing all that.
No.
We just didn't have that. That I could see that being culture shock. Wow.
Yeah, I think also the Americans, the kids had their boom boxes on their shoulders coming into school, and it was just so cool. And I came back to England and I was like, oh my gosh, this isn't so cool right now. I'm feeling very regimented. Yeah.
So do you identify, are you British through and through? You guys both kind of travel a lot and have lived in different places, but what do you feel British?
You probably sound quite British. But
yeah. Sophie is certainly quite British.
But no, we travel. I think my parents traveled a lot, so but yeah, you probably sound quite British.
So Sophie, she spent a lot of time with her grandparents, so I think that
you think so.
You have a lot of traditional things. You have British traditions, sayings, or the tea. The cup of tea is so important.
Yeah, things like that. But I feel quite British.
But how do you feel British? Like,
yeah, I do. But I
like,
really enjoy American. I know I'm speaking to American. I say it quite freely, but I really enjoy that attitude. That I find it very encouraging. You know, being around Americans, I really enjoy. It's like it takes me back to my roots. I sort of really enjoy that. It was just, you know, for example, at sports day on the sideline, you've got the American teachers whooping, and even if you're the slowest, they're like, "Oh, you're awesome," and making you feel amazing. And so I can really relate and connect to that. I love that attitude.
It's really interesting, Chris. I promise we'll get to you here. There's been a running joke actually that we've talked about having Chris and you, Sophie, on the podcast for so many years now. And Adam and I and Alex and I were joking that we should just keep saying it's going to happen, but then just keep putting it off and never actually do it. So now I'll just talk to you the whole time, and we'll just leave Chris on this one. No, I'm kidding. No, but what I was going to say, Sophie, is I've actually had a lot of conversations recently. This has been a theme in my life because I'm an expat living in Sweden, American. And I used to complain about the sort of superficial way that you'd have conversations with strangers in the U.S.
Okay.
And you know, and that's a kind of a stereotypical thing. Everybody's very friendly, but it's mostly superficial. And living in Sweden now, which is a very closed culture, where you don't have that superficial conversation. You don't talk to the coffee shop barista as if they know you, kind of thing. And I really miss that. I didn't think I'd miss that, but I really miss the unimportant, superficial conversations with strangers in public places. Like that's not a part of Swedish culture, and we don't have that here.
I think it's a British thing as well. Because I think in Germany we don't have that either. We were talking about because when we're going down to the supermarket, they now reintroduced like little aisles with a cashier where people can talk, especially the elderly. So they're purely there so people can come in and say, hello, how's your day? And Sophie loves it. She always has small talk with the guys where I'm friendly, but I go, hello, and like, goodbye, have a good evening or something. Where Sophie has a full-on conversation.
And we talked about it
most of them
yesterday.
by now.
And it's so funny that you should say that because I said exactly the same yesterday, I feel that, you know, I pass someone in the street and I can ask them, it's just a pleasantry, but I really enjoy it. It may seem small, but like you, so I can understand missing that. But maybe it's the American culture.
I mean, I guess England's similar, and I'm the same sort of thing. There's just this idea of being friendly with strangers. We don't have that, and I mean, Chris, no offense, but we joke about you falling into that at the same way. You and me are very alike in that sense. And it's funny. I was at the gym recently, and I've made some friends with the gym community and stuff. But even there, these are people that know me. Like I'm there 4 or 5 days a week. And this one guy, Pontus, we were out doing a lap around the building as a warm-up. And I just kind of looked over and in Swedish said to him, like, oh, hey, how's it going, Pontus? And he looked at me like shocked, like, I'm not prepared to answer that. Like, I don't know how it's going. It's like, relax. All you need to say, it's like, I'm fine. How are you?
Oh, that's so interesting.
It's so strange.
Yeah.
I mean, it's strange to me, but it's not. I mean, that's just the way it is here. I mean, Chris, maybe this is the time where you can speak to like you're not used to that. Like, what? I mean, you have a similar. I think
Northern Europe is similar in culture. I guess, like especially Northern Germany and Sweden, Finland, Denmark. I think it's culturally very similar. Like here in England, like we go out with the dog, right? And every other dog owner, or even if they don't have a dog, would stop and go, oh, that's a cute dog. What breed is it? And they start talking to you. And then sometimes Sophie and another dog owner, they can have a 15-minute talk and they don't even know each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That just didn't happen in Germany.
Peculiar, but
That's very odd.
So I guess for us, Sophie, it's Mia and Chris are just acting normal in their homelands here, and it's us that are the weirdos.
Yeah, you make me
I'm
feel
not in
that
the
way.
homeland. It's
No,
like,
that's true.
No, well, you're
me, it's
not. Mia
opposite.
is. Yeah. So Chris, speaking of Sophie saying she lived in communist and then non-communist Russia, what part of Germany are you from, and did you have any dealings with that growing up?
No. I grew up in the west near Hanover, so closer to Holland. And I mean, when the wall came down, I was 6. So I have very vague memories, but I can't remember anything of it.
Mm. Do you and did you live in? But you grew up in Germany. Like there must have been what was it like in Germany after that? As you got older and stuff, was it talked about in like the? I mean, it must have been.
Yeah, I mean, it's in the news, and
yeah,
you hear about it we never really went for holidays to the east. So I think the first time I went to Berlin, I was in my late, not for the Love Parade, for the big techno festival. I was 17 or something. That was the first time I ever went to the east. And that was obviously a very different experience to how it is normally.
Yeah, true. How did you guys get into sailing? Like, Sophie, I know your dad was a big traveled a lot in his journalism thing. Were they also sailors? And Chris, did you come from a sailing family? I don't care who starts.
Yeah.
No, I didn't come from a sailing family at all. Where we live, it's pretty landlocked, no big lakes or rivers. So I didn't sail until I was in my 20s. When I finished school, we still had to choose between 9 months military service or 12 months voluntary work. And I went to Cape Town for a year to work it was like an NGO that had old age homes, kindergarten, social workers. And I worked mostly working with kids from the townships. And I worked in the kindergarten and with the social workers.
How old were you?
There was after school 21.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so is that still a thing in Germany that you have to do public service?
No, they stopped that quite a long time ago. But now they're talking about reintroducing it. But
in Sweden, you have to do military service, but it's quite easy to get out of it if you have any sort of even minor medical thing or whatever. And I know they talked, I mean, this will never happen in the US, but they did talk about doing something similar where you have military or public service. I really like the idea that, I don't like the idea you have to go to the military, but one or the other I think is kind of interesting.
Yeah.
What did you think of it at the time? Was it something that you just did, or did people hate doing it? What was it like?
So I was quite happy because I really wanted to go to a different country. So for me, it was an opportunity to go overseas. So if you do it in Germany, then the government pays you like a small salary. Where if you do it overseas, you have to fund yourself. That's why I went a year later, because I had to work for a year to then fund the year in South Africa.
Okay. Yeah. And how did that connect you to sailing?
The first 2 months I lived in Stellenbosch, which is about 60 kilometers out of Cape Town, at a friend's grandmother. And then on the train into Cape Town, I met a couple, and the girl, Lisanne, she was working on super yachts. So we started talking, and she told me about the whole yachting industry, and that kind of got stuck in my head. And then I did the first com crew course straight away in Cape Town, and then started sailing in Cape Town, and then came back 2 years later, had to save money again, and started working as professionally in the industry with deliveries. And
it was a real chance meeting with a lady on the bus that you then. Yeah.
Wow, that's pretty cool. Is there, or was there then, and is there now a scene in Cape Town, like a professional yachting kind of? Are there opportunities to do that there?
Yes, so there's still a lot of sailing schools, because a lot of young South Africans, they go into super yachting. So the whole fast-track yachtmaster system is pretty big in South Africa. And then especially Cape Town and surroundings have a huge catamaran building industry.
Of course, yeah.
Leopards, St. Francis, Neisner, Two Oceans. I don't know. There must be a dozen or so of catamaran builders. So we used to deliver all the cats from the factory to the owners all around the world.
Did you have a plan before you met that lady on the bus? What was your life path gonna be?
I thought I would go to university. I was thinking about politics and history. Not a clear path. That's why it came very, very conveniently.
Did you ever go to university?
I did 1 semester politics and history, and then told my parents I'm going back to Cape Town to do my yachtmaster and go sailing.
What did they say about that?
Weren't too impressed, but they didn't stop me. They said, okay, how are you going to fund it? And they let me work for a year, and then gave me some extra money, and off I went to Cape Town.
But then you said that if your dad could see you now, because although he wasn't a sailor, he used to read the yacht magazine, he would be so proud of you.
Yeah, absolutely. Like nowadays, my mom is very happy, and my dad would have been as well. But I think it's in Germany, where I'm come from, telling someone you're going sailing as a career was so far-fetched. Would have been, I'm going to fly to Mars.
Yeah.
Same thing, kind of.
Is there a sailing culture in Germany?
There's, especially in the north, with Travemünde and Lübeck, I think are the 2 biggest sailing regattas in the world, I think, with like thousands of boats, mostly small dinghy classes, keel boats. But then on the lakes, in in Bavaria. It's quite a lot of sailing. Around Berlin, there's dinghy sailing.
Because I feel like you meet like on the Ark and stuff, and when you're out, you meet a reasonable amount of German cruisers. So there must be some sort of culture, but I guess that's just on the coasts.
Yeah, it's mostly in the north, in the Baltic, and then a little bit of Atlantic coast.
Yeah. What did your parents do for a living? Like when you were growing up, what was your like? What did you see around you?
My mom is a nurse, or was a nurse. She's retired now. And my dad, when I was young, he was driving trucks, lorries, and then did a course in logistical management.
Mm-hmm. And how about what's that?
Nothing to do with sailing.
Yeah. But so I take it your dad passed away.
Yeah, in 2009.
Okay, so it was a couple of years. My mom died in 2012, and I say the same thing. I wish my mom knew I was getting into sailing, but we didn't. 59 North didn't exist when she died, and all the rest of that stuff. I did some deliveries, but I always say the same thing. I think she would think it's really cool what we're doing now.
Yeah, same. So. I went away, did a few deliveries, and then.
So she never saw you set sail?
No, she did, but not as professional as we are now. I mean, Mia and I crossed the Atlantic on our first boat, Arcturus. With my mom helped us like prepare for that trip and do all the rest. They actually sailed. That was actually my mom's last ever sailing trip. They did. My mom and dad joined us in Newport to go from Newport up to Nova Scotia. And then we set off from there to go across the Atlantic, and that was in the summer of 2011, and she died in April 2012. Gosh. So that was her last sailing trip, helping us start that transatlantic.
So she was a sailor as well, because your father's a sailor.
Yeah, my parents. That's why I got into it. They were sailors. They weren't initially. They got into it on their honeymoon. Actually, they did. Okay. They were into boating, so they did like water skiing and stuff like that growing up. But we're similar to you, Chris. Like where I grew up in Pennsylvania. It's the same thing. Going sailing is when I was a kid, my parents took us out of school for a year and we went cruising to the Bahamas. And when we said that to friends and teachers, like people assumed we were living on a cruise ship for 9 months.
Gosh.
Like they had no concept that is a thing you can do to live on a sailboat or whatever. So I'm lucky that my parents found it because I think a friend. Somehow they got connected to a captain. They did their honeymoon on a 36-foot Morgan out island to the Bahamas from Florida just over with like 6 people on board. And that's what kind of hooked them.
But your dad, he must have had that interest before to even go on a honeymoon on a boat. Must have been an interest.
Yeah, he was into boating, I think. I mean, like I said, generally, but he never had any. I think they had like a sunfish on the lake where they water skied and stuff. But my mom said that the minute they turned the engine off on that honeymoon trip, that's when they're like, oh, this is a thing. Like we're in. This is super cool.
Yeah. So she enjoyed it as much then as your dad.
Oh, probably. I mean, my mom, if she would have had it her way, she would have raised us on the boat. Kind of like what you guys are planning on doing. Like if my mom would have had it her way, I think her dream would have been to sell everything and move aboard and do that. And we did that for a year. But I think that's what she was probably more into it. My mom was much more alternative than my dad in that sense. My dad was my mom was the driver of those types of things.
Okay.
So she would be super proud now to see you, and
very much so. Yeah,
especially with your new purchase as well.
Exactly. Yeah, it's very cool. But and Sophie, I mean, it sounds like the stories I heard just briefly at your wedding of your dad and stuff sounds like the kind of alternative lifestyle mindset came from him, maybe.
I think also from my mum. She was, because they had an interesting story. They met in Kenya in the 70s, and my father was out as a journalist then, and my mum went out. She went to work initially as sort of a boat boy on taking people out to reefs in the 70s, and then she worked in a doctor's lab, I think testing urine or something like that. So she was very unconventional, and back then she describes Nairobi as being sort of like one dusty street, and so they met then. So I think the travelling bug came certainly from probably both of them. But my father loves the adrenaline of being in the thick of an exciting sort of scene, and my mum loves travelling. So
do you think between the two of you, this is purely conjecture here, but like Sophie, is it easier for you than it is for Chris to be on this life path that you're on because you're sort of used to it? Versus Chris, you've kind of invented this as you go. You haven't had a model necessarily in the same way Sophie had?
That's a curious question. I think you're probably right. But well, say right in the sense that it's easy for me, but Chris has made it easy. You can answer yourself, but he's broken the mold, I suppose. And he's very hell-bent on it.
I think I haven't had a home since I left Germany with 21. I'd like every now and then I would rent a flat here or there for a few months, but that was really it. Only really twice since then. And then the first time we had a proper home or base was back here in England. And since then I've been for almost 20 years living on boats or tents or
catch that.
What?
Yeah.
So what is the driving force then? Is it the desire to travel and see the world, or is it the sailing specifically? That like the act of sailing to see the world? What is it that is most attracts you to not having a stable sort of home base like most people?
I think a bit of both. It's like the more you see, sometimes we're discussing where, because we want to leave England and then we're thinking about where we want to move. But there's so many places. It's almost, because we have the choice, it's almost impossible to choose.
Yeah.
Because you want to be everywhere.
Yeah.
So then having a boat gives you the advantage that you can actually move to different places and see more.
We have thought a few times about buying a big van and driving around, but of course there's the environmental impact of the fuel costs and the impact on that. But also it's I really love, and you probably get this from your sailing and you're sailing your private boat, but when you pull into an anchorage and you're looking at the land from an anchorage, it's very, very different from looking at it, they're both equally beautiful, but when you're on land looking out, but when you're in an anchorage, it can be absolutely breathtaking. You're looking in, and we love that feeling. We want to recreate that. And actually, most of my adult life has been working on boats, and often it's been at an anchorage, but it's been for work. We've never really cruised for ourselves. So this is, in a way, it's very familiar territory for us going out to sea in a boat, but going out to sea together without clients on board or deadlines to meet, it's going to be actually quite new for us.
Well, I was going to touch on that because all of us spend 99% of our time on boats with customers, and that's like a very different experience. So, how do you get sick of it? I guess was where I was going with this. It's like there's a risk in making a career out of the thing that you love the most, where you might accidentally burn yourself out and not love it as much anymore. Where do you guys fall on that continuum?
Well, I go first with that one, just because, we have sort of fun. I did have burnout at one point, 2017-18, and that's when I met Chris. But the thing that can kill it for me, and we've experienced this occasionally together, but not often, is the type of client that comes through. Because you're going to a very unique and special world when you go to sea, and all those skippers out there know that. You want to share that love for it with them. You want them to see it with you. So the thing that zaps the life out of it can be the customer that doesn't see it or appreciate it or fall in love with it. I think if a sailor, skipper, is still doing it decades later, then they must really love the environment. You can see the skippers that come along and they drop off immediately. They just don't take to the passion that's involved. So I think for me, it's like the thing that can drive me away from it is the clients. But most often, people fall in love with it. Most often, they get it. They want to be there. They love it there in the anchorage and the boat's rolling. You've had an awful night. But you wake up.
I think to follow that up, worse than a cynical client is a cynical professional mate or like your partner. Usually if you're working with someone else and they're burnt out, that is difficult to work with when you're seeing the cynicism from the leadership, because then everybody else follows along to that as well. That kind of ruins it for everybody.
Yeah. We haven't had that with each other, but...
No, I don't think I've ever burned out. I think there's been sometimes shifts within, and that's what I like about the industry. There's so many different aspects of the industry, right? From doing deliveries, to racing, to teaching, to high latitude. And So I found sometimes throughout my career, if I got bored, like in the beginning I did a lot of deliveries, and eventually I was just a little bit over the whole ocean sailing. Like after 50,000 miles or something on deliveries, it's okay, I need to do something else now. And then I went into racing. And then I think after the Clipper race, I was like, whew, okay, 11 months on a race boat with like 20 people. I need a break from racing now. But sometimes I go back to then, now I'm really looking forward to like a long ocean crossing again. Oh, and now I would like to do a fast net or something, or like a race again. So it's, I think with anything in life, if you kind of overdose on it, you get a bit tired of it. But nice thing about sailing is you just do something else. And I think that's what I really liked about our industry, that there's so many different things you can do. That always kept me busy and made my job enjoyable, I think.
What is your favorite aspect of it professionally?
Which one?
If you could boil it down, just in general, because like, if you could boil it down to something that is consistent across all those different types of opportunities you've talked about, is there something that is there some aspect of the job that like makes you feel alive more than anything else?
Yeah.
I think it's really different because the sailing can be so different. I mean, when you're racing, for me, it's downwind with a kite up, pushing the boat to 100%, and it's like adrenaline, like catching the surfs. That's the biggest fun for me, racing. But then it can also be fun not having that stress, because if you do it all the time, it becomes really stressful. So then just going, say, cruising across an ocean can be super nice because you can just embrace the ocean and the peace and quiet, and you can just look out and see the wildlife, birds. But then what we're doing at the moment with Skip, high latitude sailing, it's not so much really about the sailing. The boats are just vehicles to get to a place. But then you're rewarded with incredible scenery, like South Georgia or wildlife. And that's, so yeah, for me it's very different depending what type of sailing we're doing.
You're truly exactly like Mia, because every time you ask Mia to say, like, what's your favorite thing about something, pick anything, she'll always say the variety.
Okay. Yeah.
That's exactly what you're saying, basically. I mean, specifically, I think my answer to this is I enjoy leading people and like being the lead voice in a group of people in any context. And that's just like, if it wasn't sailing, it would be something else. I love standing up in front of people and getting everybody to work together towards a shared goal. That's what makes me excited, because that then applies to different things. I actually kind of miss, it's funny you say about deliveries, because that's how I started my career as well. And I miss some aspects of that, because what we don't get on the type of sailing we do now is I never get time alone on watch. Mm-hmm. And that's probably my favorite part of sailing. If you just like pure sailing, I like the time alone in the middle of the night on watch. And we don't ever get that because there's always 10, 12 people on the boat. And that's what was cool about deliveries. Deliveries was more like an adventure. Like, okay, I'm going to round up some of my friends. We're going to get this boat that we don't know anything about from this place to this place. And that felt like a little more of an adventure. And that got old after a while as well, because the boats were shitty and the schedule was, you never knew your schedule and stuff like that. But I have a desire now to kind of go back to maybe do some of those more spontaneous type of things just with friends, instead of having to be in front of and leading the people, getting people that actually know what they're doing and know how to sail, and you don't have to teach them and stuff. So I think that would be interesting to me. But generally speaking, what makes me feel alive is being in front of people.
And getting a result from that.
And inspiring people, like you said, Sophie. Sharing, like, it's so it forces you not to take it for granted, because you're out there with new people who haven't seen this stuff before, and you get to see the enthusiasm through fresh eyes every time, and you're just constantly reminded how amazing it is what we get to do.
Yeah, I love
with the right people.
When you get to slip, the moment you cast off, and you watch every time. I'll always watch the line leave the last cleat or bollard on the dock, and once that's left and it's hauled back on deck, it's like that casting off for me is every single time. And I think even all these years later, I still love that moment.
Where do you fall on the continuum of like racer, cruiser, expedition sailor? Where would you put yourself?
It's again, it probably is a bit like Mia there with the variety, but I think probably. So I do. I've gone back into dinghy racing, Scorpions the last couple of years, which is what I sort of started out at. So I've really enjoyed that, and that's not, that's without clients. That's just two of us in a boat, and we're making it, fly through the water in a racing environment, quite an intense one. So I really get a real thrill from that. But then I also get sailing, which you've done a lot of Caribbean stuff, but sailing up from St. Lucia to Antigua, and that was a delivery with clients on board. It was still one of the most magical memories I have, and the stars were absolutely brilliant. And then a transatlantic race when I took a lovely team across in 2020. The most amazing surfing with the symmetric at night and the moonlight. It's still, when I think about it, fills me with all those, happy feelings. Yeah.
It's what's interesting about you guys compared to Mia and I. You guys are both and have both been professional skippers at like the highest level. And Mia's just not interested in that. She's capable, she's qualified, she has all the stuff. She just doesn't like what I said about leading people. She doesn't enjoy that aspect of it. So how does that work for you guys, I guess, when you're on your own boat, or you used to work together? I mean, I think you guys met on Clipper. So what's that dynamic like when you are both willing and able to be in that ultimate leadership role?
I think so far it worked out pretty well. We're still together and married now, so
I think
and we spent, I think, the first 3-4 years together just working on boats, no?
Yeah, I think when we first met on Clipper, Chris, I remember he gave me a tour of the boat. We met at 7:30 in the morning, and the race started at 10 in China. And he gave me a tour of the boat. And
so wait, you met 3 hours before the start? Like, I knew you met on Clipper, like kind of last minute. I didn't realize it was that last minute.
Yeah,
so it was quite interesting because we started our race, was the last race that started without mates on board. It was just a skipper and clients. And then there was a bit of two disasters, one running aground and a man overboard in the South Atlantic going to Australia.
Southern Ocean.
So in Australia, the MCA, the Coast Guard, clamped down on Clipper and said, you have to have mates from now on immediately. So there were scrambling mates from here and there. And the one that joined me from Australia to China was a former SAS soldier who had, I think, in leg injury in the Kosovo Wars, terribly, all rebuilt, like all titanium in there. And on the way up to China, it was a heartbeat, lots of slamming. And we got to Qingdao, and he's like, something's wrong with my leg. Got it x-rayed, and there was a hairline crack. And he said, I'm getting off, because if that ever breaks, they're going to amputate. So then Clipper had, within a week, to find a mate who had a B1, B2 visa, Chinese visa, and a yachtmaster. And... well, Nikki and Sophie knew each other from racing before. And then Nikki contacted Sophie, who was in the French Alps with her sister skiing. And I was like, would you fancy racing across the North Pacific in late winter? And she was like, sure, when? Friday.
This was Tuesday.
She didn't have any sailing kit, nothing. And somehow Tom, who was then the deputy race director, managed to convince Sophie to come without any sailing gear directly from the Alps to China. So
wow.
Yeah. So
I got.
What were you thinking when you got that call, Sophie?
Oh, well, as Nikki said, this is right up your street. And I said, oh, it actually is. And I just, the only problem was I had to then leave my sister in the Alps and try and find my way out of the Alps and into China via, I think, Korea and Moscow. And got there at 10 o'clock at night, met Chris at 7:30 in the morning. But going back to that question about the boat and sailing together, kind of this leads into it, because I remember specifically going around the boat with Chris with, say, an hour to go before we slipped lines. And I asked him some questions about his kite setup, his kite dropping, and everything he was saying back to me, I was like, this is good. We're going to be okay. And we're obviously on the same page. And then from that moment on, we just sailed very, very similar style of sailing, got a very similar ethos on board. So I think from it just really worked, and we treat each other very much as co-skippers, and also I think when you probably find this, like when you are a skipper all the time, you're quite happy sometimes to like have a seat back and let someone else. There's no ego where we go, I could do this better or something. And we know, like, Chris is, he's really good with mechanics. As you've worked for Andy, and you guys know each other, but there's things that he's got strengths in that I don't, and vice versa. And we just work well together.
Yep.
I think that's what you said about like taking a step back. Not only is it kind of refreshing once in a while, but I think it's also telling. Like, somebody that's willing to do that I think that makes a better skipper, being able to take that following role and a supporting role and not have to be in charge all the time. I actually think that's really good. I mean, a lot of the people that work for us now, who you guys know, Alex and Mary and stuff, they both bounce back and forth, and it's great to have that flexibility, and it's just It makes it easier. It's interesting what you said about meeting Sophie. Shout out to Nikki, who made that connection. Almost the identical story with how we met Alex. I don't know if you guys heard this story. Mia, it was her first trip after Axel was born. She was going to do the transatlantic from Las Palmas to Cape Verde and then across to the Caribbean. And I was home with Axel for the first time. He was like, I think he was 2. And like the day after Mia left to go to Las Palmas, Axel got sick and had a fever for like 4 days. And we're like, it's okay, I got this. I'm single dad at home. I got it. Well, his fever never went away. And then me and Mia's mom said, all right, let's take him into the hospital just to be safe. As we're walking into the hospital, he's in my arms. He had a seizure.
Oh, no.
Because I guess that's pretty common with kids that have an elevated, like small kids that have an elevated fever for too long. He had a fever seizure. I didn't know that this was at the time. It was the scariest moment of my life. They kept him and me in the hospital overnight, and I called Mia. I said, hey, just so you know, this is happening. Turns out he had COVID, because this was like the year after COVID was a thing. And then it's a long story short, but they were going to keep him in the hospital for a few more days, and Mia was like getting ready to leave to go to sea. And I said, look, you should probably just come home, because you're not going to want to be at sea if there's a bad outcome here. So she flew home. Nikki was on the boat. This was, I think, the last season of ICEBEAR. So I said, Nikki, can you help us find somebody else? Same thing. She called Alex. Alex was in Spain. I think he had just gotten back from a stint on Clipper like the day before. Same thing. Hey, Alex, have you heard about 59 North? Oh, yeah, that looks cool. Would you like to work for them someday? He's like, yeah. When? She's like, yeah, tomorrow.
Yeah.
So he flew down and did that trip, and then Mia flew home. Axel turned out to be fine. She flew back out, relieved Alex in Cape Verde, and then Alex has been with us pretty much on and off, and lately permanently ever since.
Yeah, I think that actually, to add to that story, I remember the situations unfolding, but Nikki sent me a text and said, so if I really need a mate ASAP, and do you know of anyone? And I said, well, why don't you ask Alex Lalline? So I think I'm involved in that story as well.
There you go. I didn't know that. It all comes full circle. I mean, that's the thing about like this Pacific. I mean, the sailing, the super yacht industry it's big, it's small, but it's bigger than what we do. But what we do specifically is quite small and a quite specific skill set, and it tends to be the same small group of people that sort of bounce around to the different, because there's not that many opportunities to do it either.
I think you also hire a certain sort of level of skipper and mate. I think
sure.
So your pool is, well, there are many great skippers out there, but you've got a small pool because you hire the best, really. It's
it's interesting. I wonder what you guys, because this is different again from Mia and I. Like, Mia was not a sailor before we met, and I kind of dragged her into this. I'm like, this is the direction my life is heading. Would you like to join me?
Yeah.
And she did. Whereas you guys were both kind of on parallel paths and sort of met up in the middle. But I'm curious now, what was it like when you guys decided you wanted to start a family? Because that makes this not having a house, not having a base, not having a schedule. There's just different calculus that you have to do to make all that work. So was that a conscious choice to like, okay, we're going to change our lifestyle now? And how has that changed the way you work and live? And I know, Chris, this was one of the reasons that you stopped working for us and went back to work for Skip, because of the difficulties in having a full-time sailing schedule and a family.
Yeah. I mean, we had thought about it, and
it was age-related, partly they call me a geriatric mum. Being an older mum, so didn't have time on my side. So I think we were working, like we wanted a family, but I guess we didn't really line up how hard it would be afterwards to have the boat, the dream and everything. It's been a lot harder than we anticipated, than we expected. And it's been a bit of a slog, probably.
It's also, we kind of, for a long time, we wanted a baby, but we also wanted a boat. And then we tried for a baby and didn't go that well. So we thought, well, let's buy the boat. And then obviously we bought the boat and then had a baby as well. So suddenly we both.
Yeah.
So I think that slowed everything down even more than it usually does with just a baby.
And I think because
the boat was a big refit. I mean, it's still in refit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we also went down one salary, then I was pregnant and had the baby. And so it's just been a bit, it's taken us a lot longer. We think we're nearly there, but it's taken us longer than we had imagined.
Do you guys have, I mean, I kind of hinted at this earlier, but is your plan or your idea to raise Xander on the boat and live an alternative lifestyle with him, or what? Do you have a plan, an idea?
Yeah, I think.
What's the big goal?
So I think for the next few years, we'll live on board and rent the house out from next year on, and then we'll see how the first year homeschooling goes, how well he takes to it. If he's going well, I think then we'll try to do at least the primary school years homeschooling, and then secondary school years too. We'll have to change plans again.
Then we'd like to have a farm like you have, or even
you can. My farm just sold. You could have bought it.
Yeah.
we downsized because we decided we can't be boat people and farm people. We have to pick one or the other.
But at least you tried it and you did it for a while.
Yeah, it was great. I have no regrets, but it's time for something different now.
Change is nice, I think.
It is indeed. Yeah, I agree with that. But do you guys want to talk about? I mean, is it public? I guess it is on your Instagram. This catamaran project we're doing. Can we talk about that?
Yeah.
So I mean, that's like the latest, biggest news you guys just put out last week. So what's the deal?
Yeah.
So we have to jump back a little bit in time to just after COVID, 2021. Skip had sold Pelagic Australis to Greenpeace, and the Dutch guy who bought Pelagic Australis and gave it to Greenpeace sailed with us all the way from...
Actually, Chris, let me interrupt you for a second. Yeah. I wanted to ask you this. This is a better segue. Let's jump further back in time because I mentioned both of you guys have kind of been working professionally at the highest level of this type of expedition, adventures, racing, sailing that we do.
Yep.
Skip Novak, especially, at least for me, that's been like this, pedestal thing up here, like sort of unattainable. This would be the pinnacle. How did you get involved in that, and how did you get that job? Like, how did that all come together in the first place?
He contacted after the Clipper race. It was a bit lucky, coincidental.
Did you know who Skip Novak was, and did you feel the same way?
Work for him already.
Yeah, I knew who he was, and I always had him on my radar. And I was like, "Oh, maybe one day I can work for Skip," but hadn't really sent my CV or anything. And then he contacted Mark Light, who was a Clipper race director, and asked if he knows of any skipper mates. And Mark forwarded the email to us. We got in touch with Skip, and we had a Skype interview with him, but he was pretty brief. He's like, well, I kind of made the choice. If you want, you have the job. This is the conditions. I need to know within the next week or so.
Was this for both of you to do?
Yeah, for both of us. Yeah. As a team. Yeah.
Did you know who Skip Novak was, Sophie? Was he on your radar?
I've heard only through the racing, but I didn't realise he was doing such expedition sailing down in the Antarctic. No.
Was that something you aspired to as well?
Oh gosh, since I was, I think I was 7, I can remember dreaming of, kind of plotting and planning to to go to the Arctic and the Antarctic. Yeah, I remember telling my school teacher I'd already been, but it's a bit embarrassing.
So what did it feel like when you guys got that opportunity, and then now you have this I assume it's like some sort of excitement, but now you've got pressure of you need to make a decision pretty quickly.
I think for my family, it was a very difficult time because we had a tragedy that unfolded very suddenly, and the interview was within weeks of that. So my enthusiasm for it wasn't at the same level as Chris's. And I remember saying to my mum at the time, when we had to give an answer about it, she said, there'll never be a right time, there'll never be, there's never going to be a time, how do I word it? But she was saying, you must go. You can't not go because of what was happening within the family. And so she kind of like gave me that reassurance that it was okay to go. But I certainly didn't have the same excitement that Chris had at that time. I was, a couple of times I thought about pulling out beforehand, but it did go ahead. It was certainly very hard adjustment that first year, I would say, because, I was in this place I dreamed of my whole life, but under sort of a canopy of like sadness, I suppose. So I think we went into it quite differently in the beginning, but we like being together on the boat. We sailed so well together. It was a dream that came true going down there.
I'm going to share a story with you that if you want to play off of this and talk more about this, great. If not, I'll let it go there. But one of the reasons that I was late today is I had a doctor's appointment this morning that was skin cancer related, which is not relevant to this. Yesterday, I was in Stockholm going to a therapy appointment to see a trauma therapist because I told you about my mom died of brain cancer in 2012, and I was a big part of my dad and I basically cared for her, the last few months of her life. And it very similarly to what you said, literally a week after my mom's funeral, did a transatlantic delivery with Mia. And it was one of my first big jobs as a career kind of new thing. And I went, and I don't regret going. It was a similar thing. It was what my mom would have wanted. But what happened to me is I never slowed down enough to kind of nip in the bud some of the negative effects that you have when facing a trauma situation like that. And 13 years later, I am still suffering from various physical symptoms of this that I'm starting to put the pieces together that I think I have. I actually spoke to Nikki about this recently. And she's actually one who encouraged me to pursue this, that I'm convinced that I have some sort of long-form complex PTSD over what happened with my mom, and then subsequently Axel when he was born, with his having had a couple brain surgeries when he was born, that I never took the time to address because it was like bad time, whatever you want to call it. It was related to this, and I'm struggling from that now. Still, like I said, 13 years later. So I, first of all, can relate to exactly what you were going through, having this excitement over this new thing, but also this sort of fog of family tragedy. And I guess why I'm sharing this, I share often about my mental health on this podcast, and this is just another journey that I'm on. I'm starting EMDR therapy. I go back on Thursday.
What's EMDR?
EMDR is, what does it stand for? It's basically, it's eye movement I'm EMDR, eye movement desensitization something. But basically it's quite science fiction, but it's been around for a long time, and it's recognized as like a legitimate PTSD therapy, and where you go back and look at things, these traumatic events, and you focus in on them, and while you're kind of focused on a specific memory, you are using either light back and forth, having your eyes follow a light, or sensation on bilateral sides of your body. And the idea is it rewires your brain the way it stores these memories and allows your nervous system to process them in a different framework to kind of process trauma. It's quite fascinating, and I've had several friends that have recommended me to it, and I'm very excited I had my first appointment yesterday that was just like an intro, and I'm going back on Thursday. So my point being with this, I guess I'm simply just trying to relate to you and sympathize, but also speak publicly to the fact that, like, my therapist yesterday, this new therapist, she asked, what would you have done differently? And I said, I would have done the same thing I did. I still would have gone on that trip. My mom would have wanted me to do that. I'm happy I did it. I'm happy where it led me, but I would have done this type of therapy 13 years ago instead of now. So I don't know. For what that's worth, I relate.
I think they say if you can talk about something that's you've suffered a tragedy from, if you can talk about it, then you're a survivor of it. It doesn't mean it's left you. It doesn't mean you've got to the point where you're okay. You can still be suffering, but you are a survivor of, say, a tragedy or So I don't think I'm probably not. I don't talk about it actually, and I went into the job and I didn't tell any. Certainly, I didn't want any clients to know, and I didn't want Skip to know. I think he only sort of found out after I finished working for Skip. So I just sort of soldiered on. But it was in a magnificent place for the few years, and Chris helped me down. Well, it's been my support. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's one of those things. It's like I don't think I wouldn't have done anything differently. But it doesn't make it any easier. That's the thing. But Chris, what was it like for you getting into that? That was kind of like the pinnacle of your career, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I loved it. Like for me,
you were very excited.
Yeah, super excited going to South Georgia, Antarctica, and then we did one full season before COVID hit.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. And then it actually, through some events, COVID actually made our whole job more interesting because the normal season couldn't happen. So Skip found all these odd projects to really remote, like Marion Island, Gough Island, South Sandwich Islands, really remote places where Skip hadn't gone in 35 years because he was always locked off. And through some really lucky circumstances in COVID, we were able to go.
I think Chris is now one of the more experienced South Sandwich Island sailors now because as a result.
Yeah.
Well, you guys, I remember reading I think one of you wrote an article for Yachting World about having you guys had to get the boat back to Cape Town, just the two of you.
Yes, Sophie did. Yeah, because Nikki was involved again, kind of.
Right.
So we came back from an Antarctic trip in March 2020, and we hadn't really realized how bad COVID is. Shut off with emails, but that's it. And then got back to Chile, and it all unfolded. And
very quickly.
Our clients got the last flights out of Chile. And then
we were locking their borders. They were about to lock us inside their waters.
Well, they had. We needed a special permit from Kobusch, our agent there. And he came to board and said, okay, I've got the permit. You need to go now, right now. I'll throw your lines off you go.
Oh, wow.
And then we went to the Falklands, had to quarantine for 14 days. And then we were stuck in the Falklands and with nowhere to go. So we spent pretty much the whole, from March till July.
End of July, it's about 4 months there.
Yeah. Oh, wow. What were you doing the whole
time? In the
time?
winter time. We maintained the boat to start
first
with.
few months we did boat maintenance. And then we said to Skip, well, we can't really go home. You can't park the boat anywhere. How about we take a holiday and just live on board? And he was quite happy with that.
Worked out for him quite well.
And the Falklands, after a few weeks, they had tested everyone with flu symptoms and then declared the Falklands COVID-free. And there were no normal flights, no flights in but the military flights. So they kept it COVID-free for, I think, a year or so. So you could walk around. It went almost back to normality in the Falklands.
How many people live there? Like, was there stuff to do? Did you guys have
3,000 in Stanley, between like 2,800.
2,500 in Stanley in the capital, and then 3,500 in total.
It's about 500.
Did you go out? Yeah. Did you go out cruising on the boat, or were you just hanging out at the dock?
We're mostly in Stanley.
We made good friends with Kiki and Tees. They're the owners of Wanderer 3, and we would go for dinners and lunch and meetups, and they became our closest friends down there. And
that's cool. Wanderer 3 being who's the famous
Hitchcocks.
Hitchcocks.
So the Hitchcocks had it first.
Hitchcocks.
But Kiki and Tees boarded in the 70s. So he had the boat for a long 50 years now. Yeah, and they've been cruising the Pacific, Antarctica, South Georgia.
On their little wooden boat.
It's a 28-foot wooden boat.
That's so cool. I have Eric Hiscock's book somewhere on my shelf here behind me.
But if you're looking for someone else to interview, you should. They have great stories about small boat sailing in really remote regions.
So you guys were kind of holed up with these other, and I guess they were also stuck in the same situation as you were.
Yeah. And then it came the time that Skip managed to get the charter to Marion Island, and the boat needed to go back to Cape Town, and the ports had just opened.
briefly, but it was in the depths of winter. So Skip said, "Look, I'm not going to put pressure on you to sail back, but have a think about it and let me know in a few days." And sailing across the South Atlantic in the end of July, August, and we walked around Stanley for a little bit, discussed it, and we tried to get Nikki in. That failed, so we did want a third crew member, but then we decided to do it and double hand our way back.
Didn't it fail with Nikki? Like, wasn't she halfway there on the plane ride?
Because it was only the military flight going in, so she was booked on a military flight, and then I think she called them just before she was about to jump in the taxi to ask about extra luggage, and they said, "Sorry, ma'am, the flight is cancelled. Thank you." And she was like, "Oh, okay." And
scheduled for 2 weeks later.
2 weeks later, it was the next flight, rescheduled. She got on that flight. I think they refueled in Dakar. And then the pilot decided that it's too windy in the Falklands and turned around. And the irony was, on that day, we were sitting in the harbour, and it was maybe 1 of 2 days of the year where the Windex was just standing still, and it was zero wind. We were like,
oh,
there's something else going on here. I don't know, but...
okay. So,
and then we started running out of time to make the charter, so
we had to go.
It was either we cancelled that or go.
What was it like? Was it a weather risk sailing? I mean, I know that boat. This was on Big Pelagic, right? I'm sure that boat is capable. But was there a weather risk in doing it that time of year?
We went pretty much straight north up to 40 degrees.
We sort of charged our way north,
and then
because there was these South Chile and just massive deep lows wrapping around, and then heading up to the Falklands, and so we decided our plan was to get out the Falklands and go north, and as far as we could, and then hang a right. But it wasn't so. We know the boats. She's a tough old girl that can withstand big seas. It was more if something went wrong, then there's two of you to solve. Something. She's very everything's very heavy, and it's all.
Like if your furling gear breaks and you have a full genoa flying out, and there was two people trying to get that genoa off on a 75-foot boat.
Or in the water or whatever, so...
Autopilot fails, and now you have to hand steer for the next 4,000 miles with two people. Those were like,
those were the
concerns. As long as everything goes smooth, the boat, she's just an absolute tank.
But there weren't many boats out. We only passed one cargo ship sort of about halfway across.
Yeah, Tristan de Cunha.
Yeah. Otherwise, there were just really no vessels down there. It was kind of eerie the first time. You go in the Atlantic and you see something most often all the way across.
Well, talking about coming back to what we said earlier about sailing on the boat with no clients on board. I mean, what was that? Was that a relaxing trip in that sense for you guys, or
the first time we've done that? Oh no, we did a couple of short trips between Chile and Falklands,
but for such a long time, it was hard work. We got tired. Like just reefing the boat with two people is pretty hard work.
No, but we got down. We didn't. It wasn't. Nothing was stressful.
It wasn't stressful.
I would say hard work. It's more just being a bit tired because neither of us. We just don't like shouting on a boat, and we were like. We were not going to shout our way across the South Atlantic. So when we were carrying out these evolutions, I wrote in the article, they almost became balletic, and also the wind was screaming. It was the moment we left the Falklands, we had screaming winds in the rigging. And we just communicated through hand signals, and you got to, because it's just us two also carrying out all the drills. When you have clients on board, you got, Harry on that one, you got Charlene over there. So we didn't have that. We had just us two. You knew where we were positioned. So I think it went really well, just the two of us.
Was it cold?
Chris shot off.
Was it cold?
It was really cold until probably, again, Tristan. It was about, I would say, I have my thick gloves, Ray Mears style gloves. And I had to wear those. They're like double layered.
Wait, what is Ray Mears style gloves?
Ray Mears, he's an expedition guide in England. Have you not heard of Ray Mears?
I have, but only vaguely.
Oh, okay. I think a lot of Brits will know who he is, but he's an expedition outdoor guide leader, and he does stuff on TV. Anyway, he recommended these gloves because I really suffered from the cold down in South Georgia, particularly with the screaming winds that we have down there. So I had my big, thick gloves on, but they got me through. Maybe it's halfway, it warmed up, and then it's great.
Tristan was still, when we encountered that big container ship, was the first time that I ever had a container ship calling me and asking if we are right.
Oh, really?
And he said it's pretty wild out there.
We had a big system coming with over 50 knots and huge sea states, but they were going into it. We were running with it.
But we asked if he would mind keeping clear because we couldn't sail any deeper. And we, it was just like, and at that point it was a really fascinating, confused sea. We had some of the sea coming inside, whereas most of the time it was the sea, say, behind us or on the quarter. But this was a confused sea at that point. Yeah.
Wait, what do you mean some of the sea coming inside?
Just a couple of waves dumped inside, funneled down into the pilot house.
Oh, that sounds pleasant.
A few things going on, but yeah, most of the time it was pretty smooth. I mean, it was windy and it was rough, but we didn't have anything really go wrong.
No, the whole trip we didn't have any major issues.
That's the goal, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, all right. So, sorry. So we segued there, or we backtracked a little bit there, but this experience with Skip and Big Pelagic, led you to the next phase of what you guys are planning now. So you want to pick up there, Chris? Yeah.
So then after the whole COVID, I mean, Skip kept the show running, but I think it was pretty tough. And then he got the offer from Greenpeace to sell the boat. So he sold the boat. The guy who bought it donated it to Greenpeace. He came on the whole trip from Cape Town to Amsterdam, 7,000 miles with us. And we really got on. Super nice guy. And we've loosely stayed in touch every now and then. Like, hey, how's it going? What's happening with now the Witness, which is the new name for the boat. And then 5-6 weeks ago, he sent us a text and said, well, I've got a wild idea. Do you have time for a Zoom call? And that really was the start of it. And then it happened all very quickly. And well, the essence of it, we're now building we're not actually building it, but Abbey Boatworks in Greater Yarmouth, they're building a Pahi 63, which is the biggest James Wharram catamaran. Hopefully, it's laying the first plank on January next year.
Oh wow!
So just in a few weeks.
So Wharram catamaran. These are like the Polynesian style, kind of Moana style, really cool, neat looking books.
I have to, because you sort of have contributed to this idea inadvertently. When I was on your boat last year, I was going through your nice little library on board, and you have the Kon-Tiki, and I have to post it back to you. I'm afraid it's your book. I'm such.
It's okay. Pass it forward.
Yeah, well.
Have you been to the Kon-Tiki Museum in Norway?
No.
Oh man, if you guys ever get to. Yes, if you ever get to Oslo, there is you take the ferry from Oslo over to one of the little sort of suburbs, has a bunch of museums like all clustered in the same area, and they've got the Kon-Tiki Museum, and right next door is the Fram Museum, which was
very cool.
Amundsen and those guys, and then they have the Goya, which was the boat that they went through the Northwest Passage on. Two of the best museums I've ever been to. But it's so cool. So if you're into that Kon-Tiki story, if you ever get to Oslo, go to the museum and to the Fram Museum.
Gosh.
Yeah. Richie, by chance, yesterday we want to watch something on TV, and I thought, let's watch like a South Pacific documentary because that's where we're going. And looked, and there's actually a Kon-Tiki documentary. And you can watch it online. It's from 1951 with original footage. It's fun. Amazing.
Yeah.
There was a Norwegian production. They made like a studio movie about that as well. That's much more recent, but the original footage that's got to be really cool.
Yeah. So
wait, how did the Kon-Tiki book lead to this?
Well, catamaran? I thought, because Chris and I have been looking we wanted to do something together. You know, we can't just live on our small boat forever, and we've got some work. So we've been trying to figure out how we can do that together whilst having Xander, and we wanted something big and something different. But your Kon-Tiki book, I read it and I was like, that type of sailing was really, okay, the Polynesians did it, but these guys did it in 1947. And it's just so extraordinary. I thought, I was so inspired. I didn't think that anything like that would come up anytime soon, but I thought this is so radical. It's right up my street again. And then Chris had always, talked about sailing to Polynesia. and the South Pacific. Actually, when he left you to go over to Skip, you were a little bit sad to miss out on the Pacific sailing on Falcon. So this is really like nice, just worked out the timing so well.
So you almost like inadvertently incepted this guy with this idea. You didn't bring this to him; he brought it to you, right?
No. So his initial idea was to charter a boat in the Pacific. We looked at charter costs and stuff, and it's ridiculous. So you could almost buy a boat for that. And then we looked at second-hand boats, and then we just dropped the Wharram in, and he was like, send me some details. And he looked at like all the websites and stuff I sent him. And then next talk with, he was like, I love it. I love the idea. I love the concept. It's so much better than like just buying like a
You didn't want to buy a lagoon or a leopard.
Or anything like that.
Yeah, and we thought, no. Yeah. So, yeah.
I assume since you're talking about this, you've told Skip that you're leaving, I guess, relatively soon. How did that conversation go? Yeah,
good. I mean, explain to Skip that as a family, it's difficult. Like this year, at the moment, I'm doing a 4-on, 4-off rotation, which means I would be gone 4 months now. Then I have 4 months off in the middle of the year, and then 4 months gone away. So it would be 8 months gone this year. And Skip said he understands when he had his kids, he stopped skippering the boats, moved to Cape Town, and then employed skippers and mates for the company to be home more with his two kids.
But he did ask you if he said, if I reschedule or reshuffle the calendar, would you reconsider staying? And that was like quite nice for Chris. He'd worked so long for them to hear that, but he took it quite well.
Yeah.
No. Yeah, I mean, I guess we're in that sense. Then what I tried to do was copy what Skip did. Like I mean, we bought ICEBEAR, the second boat, when we decided we wanted to try to have a family, because there's no way I can be gone for 9 months of the year sailing, because me and I did everything before, just the two of us. So now you guys are kind of coming full circle, and now you're going to do it all together with the family.
With the family.
Well, that's the kind of unique thing about it, is that this chap said that the guys, going forward and building it, he said that we can bring Xander and he can live on board. And then he also said that we can charter the boat in between when he's not on board. So it gives us a chance to then set up our own company. And so it's just like, we feel as though, we feel very lucky and both feeling quite happy at the moment.
So you heard it here first. Stay tuned for the first Wharram catamaran charter with Chris and Sophie at 59 North in the South Pacific one day. What do you know what the boat's going to be called?
No.
I'm not sure yet.
Is he going to name it, or are you going to get to name it?
He will name it.
Probably. Yeah. I mean, he's very, because there's more to the story, but I'm not sure how much we can divulge yet.
Sure.
But we were talking, because we're setting up our own website, we were talking about names for things. And I really like Falcon, and then we're trying to come up, we thought of albatross, but albatross isn't really very fitting for a Pacific sailing boat. And then I really like the name Swallow. We're not going to use it for our yachting, for our website. But, when I looked into it, there was a HMS Swallow that sailed in 1770 and was one of the first vessels or ships to sight Tahiti. And the swallow bird, I know lots of sailors get the swallow tattoo, and it's quite a significant, it's a tiny little bird. It flits around, but it meant that sailors liked it. If they sighted a swallow, it meant that they'd arrived safely after a long passage. There are lots of these lovely associations with the swallow. So, I won't draw upon it anymore, but we did quite like that name for our website, but I don't think it's going to be the name of the boat.
What's the name of your own boat?
Ocean Wanderer.
Okay, that's easy. Yep. Easy and obvious. Yeah, cool. Yeah. We don't have to dissect the meaning of that.
No.
No.
Straightforward.
Yeah. Have you guys seen the Moana movie? I jokingly mentioned that. But,
no, we haven't.
The what?
Oh man,
the Moana movie. The Disney.
Oh no! Someone mentioned it the other day.
Is Xander into movies or TV shows at all? Do you guys let him watch TV?
Oh yeah, definitely.
You gotta watch it. It is really, really good.
Is it
really?
It's
really good. It's Axel's favorite movie, and it's become. I mean, I've seen it 100 times now because he wants to watch it. We have a movie night every Friday, but it is legitimately good, and you guys should absolutely watch it, especially with this South Pacific stuff coming up.
Okay.
It is really good, and they really did a good job on the
on the sailing stuff. Like most Hollywood movies don't do very good with the sailing stuff, but there's some pretty neat descriptions of navigation and the way it's really neat. Yep. And there's this is kind of ties into what I was talking about with my mom earlier. There's a very spiritual aspect of it where Moana's grandmother dies in the film, but then becomes her kind of like leading light and actually comes back later in the story as a sort of spiritual manta ray. She has a manta ray tattoo on her back, and she shows up when Moana's having trouble out on the ocean as this spiritual manta ray thing. It's very powerful, and I think the coolest thing about it is, I mean, it's a cartoon, but they really, the way they exaggerate the colors on the islands and the stars at night and stuff, it's obviously doesn't actually literally look like that, but they did a great job of making you understand what it feels like to be out on the ocean in the middle of the night. Like, it's,
but you've been there. You've been to the Pacific now on your boat.
Yeah, briefly, dipped my toes in, but it's you guys. I mean, I wrote a big feature for Yachting World saying about how if I was doing it on my own boat, I might skip the Marquesas and go straight to the two Motus. There's a whole long story here, and I didn't actually mean that, but I kind of used it as a hot take sort of thing. But it's quite different. It's quite cool. I mean, you guys have been to some remote places, but it's pretty neat. Yeah. I'm excited for it.
Would you want to take your little boat there over to the Pacific at some point?
Well, I mean, yes, but I don't know. It remains to be seen how that plays out with our own cruising plans, because we're not gonna attempt. I can't attempt to do what you guys are doing while also running the business. Nor do I think I don't think I want that. I like having the mix of a home base and then cruising. And right now we cruise in the summertime on Spica, and me and I have a plan in the back of our heads that when Axel turns like between 9 and 12, I think that's the sweet spot to take like an extended cruise, because that's how old I was when I was a kid, and I remember a lot and everything. So we have in our heads that we're going to take Spica cruising. I just don't know what that looks like yet. It may just be a year off sailing around here. It may be an Atlantic circuit. It may be longer. I don't know yet. But so we're planning. We're kind of setting up in the long term for that to be an option. That in 5 years or so, build the business and head in that direction where that we could take a year off and go, or two or whatever. But you can't. It's challenging homeschooling too. You're not allowed to homeschool in Sweden. So there's some logistical challenges. We'd have to like write ourselves out of the country, basically move to the U.S. on paper potentially or whatever. There's some logistical hurdles there, but we are going to go cruising. I just don't know what that looks like yet.
We were very envious of your cruising last summer. We looked at the photos and
it's so nice having that in our backyard, and it's so easy. So easy. It's perfect kid friendly. You're sailing 3-4 miles a day and just ghosting along.
Yeah, I think Chris is like, you see what Andy's doing.
Yeah, it's really nice. And I wanted to say too, you guys have a 36 foot boat.
Yep.
It's bigger than our 36, I think. But like I always joke with people when they're talking about boats that most of the professional sailor friends I know, that if they own a boat at all, it's usually less than 40 feet.
Yeah,
because we know better. Except for our mutual friend Lance, he doesn't know better.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But there's something to that. I mean, why did you guys deliberately pick a small boat?
Partly like berthing costs and things, and we don't need much
costs,
bigger,
like the maintenance you have to put into maintenance.
Buying new sails isn't going to put us out of pocket too much if we had to. And I remember Skip saying to us that small, but in one of our videos, isn't he? Small is better.
Yeah, but he was talking about the little Pelagic with still 55 foot.
Yeah.
I know exactly. Yeah.
But yeah, for that.
Yeah, we talked about, I've talked to August, we might be able to, like, maybe we kind of do some sort of hybrid where we go cruising on ICEBEAR, but then do, sell the long trips and then maybe cruise in the Caribbean and stuff. It depends how we think Axel would do on the long ocean passages, because Axel's a different kid and has his own kind of thing. At the moment, I can't imagine him on a long ocean crossing, but he loves being on the boat. Yeah. But he needs to run. He needs to stretch his legs.
Yeah. I know, that's my concern at the moment. Xander just needs to
get like a little hamster wheel.
Yeah.
Seriously, yeah. Take out the engine and put a little hybrid power in there. Cool. Well, I'm excited to see where this catamaran project goes for you guys. I'm excited for you guys because, like I said, we're in a similar situation where we're trying to balance a career in sailing while also having a family and making a living, and it's not easy. It's not easy. There's always going to be something, and I'm really excited that you guys have an opportunity now to do something together. Because Chris, I mean,
I know what it's like to be away, but you've been away a lot longer stints than I've been away.
Yeah, I think it's like in the beginning it wasn't too difficult when he was really small.
Yeah,
I think the older he gets, the harder it gets, because he has more of awareness that I'm gone, and then he's really sad, and that makes Sophie's life really difficult. Yeah,
sad.
So
it's like he has quite big tantrums when Chris is away. So.
Yeah.
Do you miss going away, Sophie? Like, do you wish that you could take turns?
Well, I think I needed a break very much. I definitely needed a break after. It was quite interesting the way our careers went, and I won't, go on about this for ages. But Chris did a lot of deliveries, like you were talking about deliveries. I didn't do deliveries. I went straight into skippering teams or RYA teaching, and then Chris then moved into RYA teaching a little bit, and then the racing for Clipper, and then he's gone into the expedition sailing. So I think my time with clients have been, really sort of 18 years or something with, boat full of people and pressures, time frame deadlines to meet all the time. So I definitely needed time out. I then did the Fastnet year before last, and then in March I'm going out to do the BVI regatta. So I'm now looking forward to it, and I'm definitely wanting to go on our boat, and I definitely want to set up our own company and now run a charter company ourselves. But I would say I'm ready to. Yeah. And have I missed it? I needed that time out.
We didn't, I think we didn't plan, or there was no me saying, oh, I want to keep working. It was just, I think, the way, we didn't really plan it in the beginning.
No,
it was more the way it worked out. Sophie felt she's had enough of chartering at the moment and said, well, she's quite happy to stay at home.
And I think with Skip, we agreed with Skip that we would co-skip, or he would skipper 1 year and I would skipper the next year. But the boat is a very heavy engineering boat, a mechanical boat. And Chris is, I said that earlier, but he's like really good at it. And I'm not. So I wasn't, I can run a Volvo Penta or, something a bit bigger, simple, but the systems on board PA were just too much for me. So that's why Chris has really stayed on with.
Yeah. And you, I mean, like you said, you happily got a break out of it as a result.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, cool. Well, I'm excited to see. We got to do this again. Catch up as the boat gets built, or when the boat gets built, or whatever. And I told you, Chris, before that, when it comes to that first shakedown sail across Biscay, call me up if you need crew.
Cool.
Speaking of not having to be in charge, you can
it's
rope
going
me
to be winter Biscay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. I'll take it as long as I don't have to be in charge.
I don't think we'll have many takers for that one. Just Andy Shell.
Yeah, sign me up. Cool, guys. Well, really nice to talk to you. Nice to get to know you a bit more as well. And man, this has been fun, both of you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks also to our sponsors, Offshore Passage Opportunities and Rutgerson Marine. Check out sailopo.com to sign up for the mailing list and crew offshore, and check out rutgersonmarine.se or buy hardware from your local chandlery. Thanks to both, and we'll see you next week. On the Wind is the podcast about sailing, created by 59 North and hosted by me, Andy Schell, and August Sandberg. The show is mixed and produced by me and August in Sweden and Norway, respectively. The intro theme music is composed and performed by former podcast guest, sailor, and musician Cameron Dale, while the outro music you're hearing now is, of course, by our friends, the Storm Weather Shanty Choir from Bergen, Norway. We love hearing from our fans, so send your questions and comments to holdfast@59-north.com, and please do us a favor and review the show on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. Don't forget to join us on the quarterdeck as well to nerd out about seamanship. That's quarterdeck.59-north.com. Until next time, hold fast.
Could be. And when me money was all gone on liquor and the horse, I made up me mind that I was inclined to go to sea no more. No more, no more, to go to sea no more. inclined to go to sea no more. As I was walking down the street, I met sweet Angeline. She said, come home with me, me lad, and we'll have a cracking time. But when I awoke, it was no joke. I found I was all alone. My silver watch and my money too, and my whole bloody gear was gone. Was gone, was gone. My whole bloody gear was gone. It was when I awoke, it was no joke, for my whole bloody gear was gone. As I was walking down the street, I met Big Rapper Brown. I asked him if he would take me in, and he looked at me with a frown. He said,
last time you was paid up with me, you took up no score. But I'll take your advance and I'll give you a chance to go to sea once more.
Once more, once more, to go to sea once more. I'll take your advance and I'll give you a chance to go to sea once more. Sometimes we're catching whales, me lads, but mostly we get none. With a 20-foot oar in every paw from 5 o'clock in the morn. And when daylight's gone and the night's coming on, we rest upon our oars. And oh boys, you wish that you was dead, or snug with the girls ashore. Ashore, ashore, or snug with the girls ashore. Oh boys, you wish that you was dead, or snug with the girls ashore. Come all you seafaring lads that listen to me song. When you go a big boating, boys, make sure you do not go wrong. You take my tip when you come off a trip, don't go with any horse, but get married instead and have all night in bed and go to sea no more. No more, no more, to go to sea no more. Get married instead and have all night in bed and go to sea no more. No more, no more, to go to sea no more. Get married instead and have all night in bed and go to sea no more.